I stopped doing personal coding projects, and that has been one of the best decisions that I've made for my career and for my well-being. Now, while trying to get into the software field, I built a lot of projects to put on my resume and to continue to improve my skill set, and it worked. I ended up getting hired. Now, after being in the field for some years, I'm constantly surrounded by lines of code, difficult projects, and the excitement of building something new. So why would I choose not to do personal projects anymore if I could get these same experiences in my own time? So in this video, I'm going to explain why I feel personal projects can end up being a waste of time, the reasons behind my decision, and some unexpected lessons that I learned along the way. Now, my whole time growing up, I never had any interest in software development, web development, coding, computers, or anything involved with that. But life circumstances some years ago put me in a position to where I needed a better career and I needed better money. And I wanted to accomplish this without going back to school. So I started to use all the free resources out there to learn how to code. And I told myself that if I could stick with that learning process for at least 3 months, then I was gonna keep going and I wasn't gonna give up until I got my first job. So by doing some research, I started to see what I needed to do to get my first job. And one thing that I will always see was to build personal projects. This was my only way to put something on my resume and to show that I at least had some kind of experience with learning how to code. So that's all I did. As I was learning, I was trying to build as many projects as I could. And anytime I would finish one, I would feel a sense of accomplishment and like I was actually making some progress. I knew that eventually all of this was gonna help me get my first job. Now, even though my projects weren't anything amazing, they did give me some talking points during my interview, because if I didn't have any projects, these companies wouldn't have a reason to call me because there would be nothing to talk about. So during these interviews, the interviewers would ask me how I accomplished certain projects, any complications that I ran into, and just my overall thinking. They were asking me these questions to get a sense of how I will be on the job. And this is what I mean by projects serve a purpose. My purpose for building projects was to get my first job so I could actually start getting some formal experience. And once that purpose was met, I didn't see the point in continuing to build personal projects in my own time. The second reason is a revelation that I had once I actually started working in software about how this whole industry works. So before I started my second job, I was pretty excited because I was going to be moving away from this database type of work that I was doing into web development and using JavaScript again. And this was during a time when Angular was extremely popular. And even though Angular wasn't specifically mentioned in the job description, I kind of had the assumption that, well, if Angular is super popular, then all of these companies are going to start moving towards it. At least this is how I assumed that things would work. But then I started my first day at the job and I realized that they still had a lot of vanilla JavaScript and some older libraries that were still in their code base. And there were no intentions on changing this anytime soon. So I started to wonder about it, and I asked one of the developers on the team, why are you guys still using vanilla JavaScript? And he told me that at the end of the day, software and web development is still a business, and these companies are making business decisions. So there's a common misconception that just because a new framework is released and everybody is hyping it up and saying it's the best thing ever, that everybody is just gonna drop everything that they're doing and run to this new framework or library. And that's not the case. A lot of startups may use these newer frameworks because they wanna attract newer talent, and they wanna attract the people that are gonna be working hard. If somebody is already a master at a new framework, you can trust that if you hire them, they're probably gonna be a good employee for you. But for everybody else, especially larger companies, this is not how they operate. I found that you will find more companies that are still using older languages and frameworks because, for one, it still works for the goals that they have. Two, they've built up so much on top of this code base that it will be a pain to try to migrate to something else. Companies have to consider the amount of time and the amount of money that it's going to cost to make this big of a change. And this is another reason why I don't build personal projects, because there's a good chance that I might not be using this hot framework or this language on my job anyway. So whenever I'm put into a situation to where I have to learn something new, I learn it on the spot and I learn it on the job. That way I'm actually learning the real way of how the code is going to work within the company that I'm working for, and I'm not just building some random project on the side that may or may not help me on the job. Now, don't get me wrong, when I first started my career, I did manage my full-time job and building projects on the side, but that was only up until a certain point, because I thought that to be a real coder, then I had to be coding all day. At least that's what the perception is. Many people will make you feel like you should be coding non-stop, and honestly, that's a complete lie. I remember one day, I had a long day at work and I got home and I was still trying to work on this project, and then it was like a ton of bricks just hit me, and I started thinking, why am I still doing this? And then I realized that I was letting imposter syndrome make me feel like I didn't deserve my job if I wasn't coding non-stop like I saw everybody else supposedly doing. I wasn't coding after work because I enjoyed it. I was doing it because I was trying to fit into the industry. And that was my last time building personal projects. Working in this field is about longevity, and you have to do what's best for you mentally, and physically, whether you look like a real programmer or not. And probably the biggest reason why I stopped is because interviewers don't care anymore. So an interesting fact is that I still have the side projects that I built years ago on my resume. The same projects that I had on there when I started to get my first job. But an even funnier fact is that I know these interviewers see the projects on there because it's right by my education section, and no one has asked me about these projects for at least 5 or 6 years. The first reason may be because they don't think the projects are that impressive compared to some things that they see today. But I think the real reason is that they don't care. They don't care because I have actual professional experience. Experience outweighs any project that you can build and put on your resume. So instead of getting questions about how I built this random custom application with this API, I'm getting questions about my different experiences within certain teams, or very specific questions about the type of development that I've done, but never about the personal projects that I built years ago. Now, I like my job and I like what I do. I like to code, but it's not my life. I have plenty of other hobbies, spending time with my family, playing sports, lifting weights, playing bass, and this is how I choose to spend my free time. So whether you're self-taught or not, just remember that everything that you do should serve a purpose in order to get you to that next step. So if you don't have your first job, then yes, continue to build projects. But once you get that first job, really consider if you still need to keep doing it or not. Because honestly, projects are not what's gonna get you the job. The projects are only a key to help you get more interviews. But your ability to get the job is how much you can convince the interviewer that you understand technical subjects, that you understand how to work within a team, and that you're gonna be focused and driven to learn as much as you can. And then you get to a point to where your side projects or maybe some passion projects or something you may want to build or maybe monetize at some point, but it's not the same type of stress that you feel of I have to get this done because I have to present this to someone. So these are my reasons why I no longer do personal projects and how it has been one of the best decisions for my career. I hope it was helpful for you. And if there's one thing you should not forget is that everything you do should serve a purpose to get you to the next step. Once you get to that next step, really reconsider if you still need to keep doing those old things or not. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.